What's going on? And in this video I'm going to be talking about how I stopped waking up at night. And specifically in this video, if you're someone that's struggling with sleep, when it comes to insomnia, you can't fall asleep, but when you do fall asleep, you keep waking up at night, and overall the quality of the sleep is poor, this video is perfect for you, as I'm going to be going over all the strategies when it comes to optimizing your sleep and having clarity to why some of these things happen. Because maybe you have tried different things that have improved your sleep, but you still don't really understand why you have issues with your sleep. And when something does happen and you can't sleep properly, you don't know how to fix it and why it's happening to you. So I'm going to give you clarity behind that. And the reason why you think you should listen to me is I had all of those issues. And let's say, for example, you take one of my clients. He was having issues with his sleep for about 6 years. He was going to doctors. And by implementing the things that I'm going to be talking about in this video, he was able to improve his sleep. Something that doctors weren't even able to help him out with. And most of it had to do with his diet. So make sure you watch the video and stay till the end, as I'm going to be showing you at the end a list of foods that you should be avoiding when it comes to, optimizing your sleep and overall hormonal function and things like that. First things first, I want to really make you aware of why you're waking up at night. Why is it that you wake up in the middle of the night? Could be 2, 3 a.m. You wake up, sometimes you might feel extra stressed out. You have racing thoughts. When you do wake up, you can't fall asleep. So this is why. So this is from Ray Pete. If your thyroid and other hormones are in the right concentration, your liver should be able to store at least 8 hours worth of glycogen, letting you sleep throughout the night. But when your thyroid hormones are low, or estrogen is high, or other things are interfering, your liver can hardly store any glycogen. Glycogen meaning stored glucose, sugar, carbohydrates. When your liver can't respond to the adrenaline anymore, and the signs of liver glycogen depletion includes shakiness and being cold and even sweating, things like that, which are signs of high adrenaline, it resorts to high cortisol levels, which begin breaking down your tissues, turning protein, so amino acids, so from your muscle tissue, into carbohydrates, glucose, through a process called gluconeogenesis for energy. So gluco meaning glucose, neo means new, genesis the creation, so the creation of new glucose from amino acids. So basically your liver, so one of the biggest reasons why you're waking up at night is your hormonal profile is messed up. So your liver can't store enough glucose to sustain you throughout the whole night. So what happens when your liver glycogen stores deplete is your body spikes adrenaline to squeeze the last bit of glucose from the liver, like just make sure everything's out. And then once that runs out after a couple of minutes, it spikes cortisol to then take your muscle tissue, your thymus gland, to convert it into glucose to fuel the liver to keep you going, right? Because your brain constantly needs glucose, things like that. And this is why a lot of the time you might even get nightmares. This is why a lot of the time when you improve your nutrition, when you're eating properly, your dreams become better, more vivid, more positive. But when you're eating not well, you get a lot of nightmares. And I'll tell you a story in a bit of how that works together. But let's continue. So what is sleep? Why do we sleep? So darkness and cold is a stressor to the body, and deep sleep is a protection against it. So one of the reasons why we sleep specifically at night is because darkness and cold is a stressor. There's studies on this, how staying in darkness lowers testosterone levels. And this is why things like red light therapy, being out in the sun, getting plenty of sunlight increases testosterone levels a lot and your hormonal profile, your thyroid hormones. And overall coldness as well is a stressor, because different enzymes in your body need a certain temperature to function optimally. This is why overall signs of low thyroid is being cold. So it's a stressor to the body. So deep sleep, the key operative word is deep. And most people don't get good quality sleep. That's why they can't fall asleep, because the stressor is too much. Hence why the insomnia kicks in. That's why a lot of people can sleep during the day. They can have a nap during the day. They sleep completely fine. And they're wondering, why is it that during the day I can have this amazing nap and I can sleep, but during the night I just can't fall asleep? This is why, because the stressor is too much. There's studies on every hour, every half an hour, the cortisol increases by whatever X amount of percent. So the longer you go without going to sleep while the sun sets, the cortisol increases and the stressor being too much, hence why you get insomnia and you can't fall asleep. This is also why animals hibernate during the winter to protect themselves against the coldness and darkness. And also people age the most during the winter. During the summer people look more youthful, but during the winter people age more because it's constantly cold and dark. And the importance of actually being able to go 8 hours without any interruption is because men who sleep 8 hours per night have much more higher testosterone levels than men who only sleep 4 hours per night. And the key thing is 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep, because you produce your hormones during the deep sleep, the REM sleep. And the longer you sleep, the longer the REM cycles become. From my understanding, a cycle is like 90 minutes, and that's the sleep cycle. And within that sleep cycle, there's a certain amount of time that's REM. I can't remember exactly the amount of minutes, but the longer, so it's like 90 minutes, 90 minutes, 90 minutes, 90 minutes. So if you sleep 8 hours consistently, each cycle without any interruption in between becomes longer with each cycle going forward. But if you interrupt that, it kind of restarts. So this is why it's important to get the 8 hours uninterrupted. Biblically speaking also, when Elijah was suicidal, God gave him food to eat and to be able to sleep optimally and wake up rejuvenated, because God knows this. You need energy to actually sleep. A lot of people think that if you eat before you go to sleep, you're going to gain fat and things like that, but that's further from the truth. And I'll get into all of that in a moment. So, hopefully you understand why you're waking up, which is your liver glycogen stores are being depleted. Could be due to high stress hormones, low thyroid hormones, things like that. So now I'm going to go over a bunch of tactics that you can implement into your lifestyle that can improve your sleep. So first things first, avoid eating a meal high in protein right before you go to sleep. Protein is important, but preferably during the day. When you have protein overall is very insulinogenic, meaning if you consume protein, it can lower your blood sugar. Hence why I also recommend having enough carbohydrates when you eat protein. But if you have high amount of protein before you go to sleep, so you're lowering your blood sugar, and then when you fall asleep, less blood sugar, less liver glycogen stores, higher stress, things like that. Protein is also very stimulating and hard to digest, so be cautious of that. Overall, you can eat carbohydrates all the way until you fall asleep and you'll be perfectly fine. But protein, on the other hand, I would be careful. Glycine, an amino acid, is very anti-inflammatory. It's very good. It's anti-anxiety, lowers cortisol, increases DHT. So I highly recommend supplementing with that. You can have from bone broth or gelatin, things like that. Next, carbohydrates. A meal high in carbs, about 130 grams before bedtime, increases REM and sleep quality, as well as significantly shorter sleep latencies. So carbohydrates are super important. Next, L-theanine, supplementing with that, especially if you're struggling with insomnia and just racing thoughts. Very powerful. Next, no caloric deficits. This ties into this, and this ties into this as well. This is why intermittent fasting has become very popular, even though I'm not a fan of fasting, because you're teaching your body to burn fat for fuel mostly, and you're in this state while you're fasting and you're running on cortisol and adrenaline. But people who, let's say, are in a caloric deficit, they will do much better doing intermittent fasting because they're having most of their food right before they go to sleep. And if they do it properly, they can sleep better and things like that. But overall caloric deficit will mess with your sleep because you don't have enough fuel. Next, body fat percentage. If your body fat percentage is above 15, you have more aromatase enzyme, which is stored in the body fat. Aromatase converts testosterone into estrogen. Estrogen being very stressful and problematic, like mentioned here. Or estrogen in the side can mess with the liver. Next, exercise. Exercise improves sleep quality. So make sure when you do exercise, do it during the day. Don't do it right before you go to sleep because you're spiking your very adrenaline and cortisol because you're getting amped up in your nervous system. But overall training during the day, so then your body you're more likely to be tired and actually fall asleep. If all you do is just sit in your room all day, it's going to be harder to have good quality sleep. Number 8, magnesium. Magnesium is very good for keeping your stress hormones low, relaxing the nervous system. When it comes to magnesium, you need to make sure your thyroid hormones are optimal because your body needs thyroid hormone to retain to magnesium. So within the cell, magnesium and potassium is within the cell, calcium and sodium is outside the cell. When you're running on stress hormones, magnesium is outside and everything is all over the place. So all the magnesium that you consume, you pee out. Blue light. So avoiding blue light, getting blue light blocking glasses. I have them, for example, here. So before you go to sleep, when it comes to things like blue light blocking glasses, they can be beneficial, but it's not like I need them. Like remember when you were a child, you could watch TV all the way up until you fall asleep and you were perfectly fine. So blue light blocking glasses, I think, work very well when you're in a very detrimental state, so anything can throw you off. But ultimately, when your hormones are in a good state, you have good thyroid hormones, your energy production is high, it's easy to fall asleep. Next, sleep in complete darkness, because light can be stimulating, especially things like LED lights. No sound, so using earplugs. EMF, so I personally make sure I turn off everything around me. You can use grounding mats for your bed. Also for my phone, even though it charges beside me, I put it in this cage, this little cover that there's no EMF coming off of it. So I found really good benefits when it comes to that. Sleeping in a cold room. This really depends, right? So ultimately, as a man, you want to keep your testicles colder because the reason why they hang in a sack away from your body is because it needs a certain temperature to keep the sperm and everything to work properly. In your testicles, that's where you actually only find unsaturated fats. And this goes back why PUFAs, polyunsaturated fats, are bad for consumption, because when you consume them, they oxidize. Hence why the testicles have unsaturated fats, but they're away from the body because when they are close to the body, it oxidizes, causes oxidative stress. Also, when your room is cold, it can be problematic. It could be too much of a stressor for some, and you won't be able to fall asleep. Some people have to wear socks, gloves, even a hat to keep the extremities warm, so play around. Next, drinking too many liquids. Another big thing I see with people is they need to pee at night all the time. I can't remember the last time I had to do that. It has been years since I actually had to wake up at night to go and pee, but I struggled with this 3, 4, 5 times a night, and I see that with clients. This is just high stress, high estrogen, things like that. Next, consistency, sleeping, going to sleep at the same time every day. Next, sunlight first thing in the morning to set the circadian rhythm, optimize gut health. So I'm going to go over the foods that you need to avoid. I'm going to give you a list at the end. Because if you're eating problematic foods, you're increasing histamine, serotonin, that makes you irritable. Your mind is racing, increases nitric oxide. And it's just very problematic. And these are the reasons why people wake up at night as well. Because if you have gut irritation and it's night, your blood sugar drops, then your intestine gets inflamed. That's why some people, when they wake up in the morning, they might have their gut, their intestine very sore or inflamed. This is why. Next, avoid bad entertainment, stress. So don't watch anything that overstimulates you. Grounding, write things down. So all of these things are very powerful that you can utilize. So before I continue, there's a repeat story, you could say. So on one of his podcasts, he was doing an interview. He mentioned a story of how there was people that regularly woke up at night because their liver glycogen stores were depleted. So and they knew exactly it was every 90 minutes, they would wake up with very high adrenaline. So they would wake up with a nightmare, and it was every 90 minutes. So what they done was they would set an alarm for 80 minutes, just right before it would happen. So what they would do is set that alarm every 80 minutes, just right before they would get into that low glucose state. And after doing that for a prolonged period of time, they were able to heal their liver and go longer without food. Because the problem becomes when you're constantly, it's like you have a cut and it's healing and you keep cutting it, not letting it heal. So you need to, that's why people who are in a low metabolic state have low thyroid hormones. They need to eat more regularly to heal the liver, because being in that stress state is what causes the issues. So going back to the tactics, if you do wake up at night and you don't really know why it happens or whatever, and overall, I'm human too. And this is going back to the thing I mentioned at the start, having clarity. If I eat something problematic because I went on a date, I was courting a woman and we went to a restaurant and I ate something that's not optimal, and then that night I woke up in the middle of the night because I was eating problematic foods, I don't wake up and be in a state of shock. Why is this happening to me? I have clarity of, okay, I know why this is happening to me. Beside my bed, I always have something sweet. So you can either have some milk with sugar or honey and some salt, and you drink that if you do wake up, and the stress response will go away instantly and you'll be able to fall back asleep. Even Mexican Coca-Cola is very good because it has sugar cane. It's sugary. The main thing is lowering the stress hormones. So this is what they did. They just had something sugary and salty when they woke up, and that decreased the stress response, because a lot of people do wake up and then they can't fall asleep. So doing this is a very powerful tactic. Highly recommend. So like mentioned, the problem starts with undigested food, inflammation, stress hormones, low blood sugar. There's a sleep hack that Rapid would talk about, which was a combination of low thyroid and undigested food is the casual case of those sleep problems. Since blood sugar normally falls at night, and with hypothyroidism, low thyroid, The low blood sugar causes intestinal inflammation and activates the stress hormones. Milk with sugar or honey or ice cream lowers the stress hormones. A little coffee and aspirin at bedtime can lower some of the chemicals that cause wakefulness. If you watch my previous video on caffeine, because a lot of people think it's crazy to use caffeine right before you go to sleep, but caffeine, all it does, it increases your metabolism. The reason why people can't consume caffeine is because they have issues with their liver. So because they don't have enough fuel in their liver, they're spiking their stress hormones to provide the fuel that the caffeine needs to keep your metabolic rate higher. But if you consume enough sugar, your liver is healthy, you can have caffeine before you go to sleep. And I'm telling you right now, I have my best snaps during the day where I have a nice big meal and I have like 200 milligrams of caffeine. I breathe super deep. I feel super relaxed. My heart rate feels nice, 80, 90 beats per minute, good temperature, and I just feel super relaxed because it increases energy and your body needs energy to relax. So a lot of people think that sleep, you don't need energy to fall asleep, but it takes energy to relax. If you watched my previous videos, it doesn't take energy to contract, but it takes energy to relax. So if you have issues with your thyroid hormones, you probably struggle with cramps a lot as well, which is you don't have energy to relax, right? It's same with your mind. That's why people who have issues with the thyroid hormones, they have anxiety, stress, paranoia, things like that. And same with sleep. They can't relax. The sleep is not optimal. So it takes energy to relax. Sleep needs energy, ATP, your body needs energy to relax. Sleep. Before I get into that, just to really summarize what you need to focus on is avoid the list that I'm going to show you of foods. If you go to fedorsky.com/free, it'll just bring you to this. And it shows you all the foods you need to avoid. And make sure you're eating good saturated fat during the day, coconut oil, butter, things like that. Carbohydrates from fruits, honey, sugar, things like that. And protein from preferably organs, eggs, dairy, glycine, collagen. And eating enough calories per day, so you're not in a deficit, so you're eating enough. Using things like the carrot salad, activated charcoal to clean out the gut, and making sure you have most of your protein middle of the day and having most of your carbohydrates later at night, and then having that something sugary beside your bed if you do wake up at night, and really go from there. Also, avoid blockers, eat enough to fuel your body, fix micronutrient deficiencies. So vitamins, minerals, vitamins, fat soluble, water soluble, vitamin A, D, E, and K, water soluble B vitamins, and then minerals, you have macro and micro minerals. Macro meaning electrolytes, magnesium, potassium, sodium, and calcium. So having a good calcium to phosphorus ratio, so consuming like 2000 milligrams of calcium per day, making sure you're consuming enough vitamin D. And then micro minerals, make sure you fix those deficiencies like zinc, copper, selenium. And yeah, personally, I would think this would give you the biggest ROI when it comes to really optimizing your sleep. And if you have any more questions, because you've tried, this is not working, whatever, I highly recommend you go to the Brotherhood. I'll leave a link down below. And you can ask questions. You can see other people's things, what supplements not to use, what to use, and things like that. And yeah, you can ask me questions personally. So yeah, I think this would be the strategy, and this is what I use to really optimize my sleep, and this is how I stopped waking up at night. So that being said, hopefully you got some value out of this video, and I'll see you in the next. Peace.